Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is Grilled Lobster Rolls. Hey baby bubba, my name's Chef Tom from allthingsbbq.com. We make sick eats, and that's no bull, so let me show you how we do the lobster roll. We lobster it out. Roll it out.
That doesn't make the cut.
Well, today we're traveling to the northeast of the United States for one of their specialties that's great for summertime, especially here late in the summer, and that's the lobster roll. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do a lobster roll. In fact, there's a lot of different ways you can do a lobster roll, so we kind of had to choose our path on this one. In the future sometime, I'd love to do like a cold lobster roll salad. I think that sounds delicious, but what we're gonna go for today is a warm lobster roll that's just coated in a compound butter. There's really not much more to it. You're really just enjoying that lobster and the butter that it's tossing with a few garnishes on top. So we're starting with a half cup of unsalted butter here. We're gonna add to that a tablespoon of a steak seasoning, the Cattleman's Grill Tri-Tip, so great dried flavors, dried onion, dried garlic, a little bell pepper, of course some salt and pepper in there. And then we're gonna give it about a teaspoon of the Killer Hogs hot sauce. So we're adding a little bit of depth to the butter with some tang and just with some general seasonings. And then the last thing that always goes great with lobster is some lemon. And instead of just putting the juice in, we're actually gonna use the zest for the compound butter. So the zest of 1 lemon, and we'll give this a mix. And the great thing about what we're doing today is we don't need to chill this back down into pats or anything. We're just gonna use it at room temperature as we kind of brush it on the tails before we grill, and then later as the lobster roll starts to come together as well. So we'll just give that a really good mix. And already developing some really nice flavors to complement the lobster meat. So now let's talk about the lobsters themselves. Today we're gonna be cooking 2 lobsters. Both are just a little over 2 pounds each. And we're going to start by parboiling them. We're gonna cook them partially to most of the way in the water. We're gonna take them out, we're gonna take them apart, and we're gonna finish the tails over direct charcoal heat so we can get some of that char grilled flavor on there. Now when it comes to cooking lobsters, there's really just a couple of options. You can either drop them in there live, and I know a lot of people do that. We're gonna actually dispatch these lobsters before they hit the water. And it's not necessarily a fun thing, but it's a fact of life and a part of how we're gonna make this meal. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. So here's one of our lobsters here. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna find this line on top of the lobster's head, about halfway back to that first knuckle where the pinchers meet the body. And we're gonna align our knife right on top of there to plunge down through the head. So that's gonna go right in the center, and we're gonna press straight down. And with that knife straight up and down, you're just gonna take your hand and plunge it down and then cut forward. And I won't assume that everyone wants to see that on camera, so we'll go ahead and do that off camera today. All right, so we've got a pot of water just at a boil here. We're gonna add some salt. We wanna go about 1/4 cup per gallon. Make it nice and salty like the ocean. And then we're gonna drop our lobsters in claws first. This will pop right back up to a boil. We're gonna go for 4 minutes initially. All right, so 4 minutes in here, you're gonna see how just how much they've changed in color. Look at this. Don't try this without gloves on, by the way. See how bright red that is now? Now the tails, remember, we wanna grill those here in a little bit. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna grab hold of these tails and hook them over the edge to kind of give them a break. But those claws, we want to get a little bit more cooked. So we're going to leave those in there for another 3 minutes or so to continue cooking. So after those additional 3 minutes, we're going to take these guys out. We'll walk them outside right into our ice bath. So just ice and water. We're going to throw them in there to stop the cooking process now. Just enough to cover, and we'll let those rest for about as long as they cook, 7 or 8 minutes. So now that these have chilled down, we're gonna break them apart and start to extract the meat from inside the shell. So we'll start by taking off the tails because, again, we're gonna grill those. You're just gonna grab them right where they meet the body and twist. So sometimes you're gonna pull some of the innards out with it. Just rinse that off and clean it up. So we're gonna come right in between all the legs here on the tail. Just plunge our knife down and pop that open. We're not cutting all the way through, but as we pop this open, we start to expose all of that meat. Now that's mostly cooked, but we're gonna get some nice grill marks on it before it's done. If you see any matter from the poop track, go ahead and clean that out of the center. So now we're gonna move on to the claws and legs. The next place where we have the most amount of meat obviously is in these big pinchers. We're gonna take the arms off. We can also extract a bit of meat out of these little legs if you want to, so let's take those off as well. And then the main body cavity, currently I have a bag in the freezer full of these so I can make some lobster stock at a later date. So save that for when you want to make a seafood stock. All right, so we're gonna get into the big pinchers first. Just break those off. Now there's a number of ways to get inside this thing. I'm gonna be honest with you, I live in the Midwest. I haven't been doing lobster all my life, so I know that you can crack this open with the back of a knife and kind of work in there. I know that you can also use some specialized tools to crack into it, but honestly, shears are my favorite tool when it comes to getting inside of there. I'm gonna go ahead and wiggle loose this side, and if we're gentle, we pull that out with all that meat intact, which is great. And then for me, I just like to cut open the shell. Try not to damage any of that meat. I mean, it's not a big deal if it comes out in chunks, but it's always nice when it comes out in one big piece. Yeah, we got most of it there, not bad. I'm certainly not a pro at this, but I get better at it every time I do it. There you have your claw meat. Success. Now with the rest of the arm, I'm just going to continue to work with my shears to get into that meat. Get this a clip on both sides, see what we can get exposed, and then we can kind of work that meat out with our little fork here. There we go, it's a nice chunk. So then I'll show you my little trick for these little legs. There's not a lot of meat in here, but if you take the end off, grab either a rolling pin or like a bottle of wine, you can just squeeze that meat out of there. You're paying for it, so you might as well go after it. All right, so we're gonna break down the rest of this stuff and get our tails ready to head over to the grill. So we're getting some charcoal going, nice and hot, here in the bed of the Yoder Smoker's adjustable charcoal grill, the flat top. The electro torch getting it done real quick. So here we have our split tails. They're just about ready to go over to the grill, but first we're gonna grab that compound butter and just brush a little bit of that compound butter on them. Again, these are pretty much cooked. We're just looking to get a little bit of color on them, add some of that grilled flavor. So then we have our claw meat, of course, which came out looking really pretty. We've got our knuckle and our leg meat over here. This is just about broken down to the sizes that we want for our little bite-sized pieces. We want some good chunks. What we can do with these pinchers is we can take those off, and those will look really nice as a presentation on top, and then we can take the meat of that right there and dice this down into more bite-sized pieces. And all of this will re-warm in our butter sauce here in a bit. So we're gonna be grilling high heat. This shouldn't take long at all. We've got our charcoal nice and hot. I'm just gonna move our charcoal all the way to the top so that we get a really nice direct grilling surface. So we'll go meat side down with the lobster right over the hot charcoal. Also got some red onion. We're just gonna get a little bit of color on that. That's gonna be part of our garnish. So starting to get some browning on there. We could use a little bit more. Same with that one, but that's looking really good. That butter we put on there kind of dropped down and helped some of that flare up, and that's gonna add a lot of flavor. Really no need to close the lid at this point. In fact, you want to leave it open because we're looking just for the direct heat for the color. We're not cooking for temperature. If you're cooking on any other type of grill, just think of it in the same terms. If you got a pellet grill like the YS640, you're going direct, right over the flame, over the firebox, no sort of diffuser or anything. Same thing with like your Kamado Joe, your big green egg, no sort of diffuser in there, just like 500 plus degree straight heat from that heat source, whether it's charcoal, pellets, gas, whatever. All right, so that's looking really nice. Great browning on the surface, that's what we're going for. Same thing on that one right there, just a little bit of color on the surface. Gonna continue to let these onions get some color while we go dice up our tail meat. So now that we've got this grilled off, we're just gonna pull that tail meat off the shale. I just said shale. So now we've got this great color and texture as well on the surface. That's gonna help out a lot. So what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna dice this up so that we can add it with everything else. We're gonna warm it all together in our compound butter. We'll mix that right in with all of that knuckle leg meat. I'll leave the claws off to the side here for presentation. All right, so I've been preheating this Lodge 10-inch cast iron griddle on the grill. We're gonna add probably a good like 1/4 cup to 6 tablespoons, somewhere in that area of our butter sauce. We don't want this rolling too hard because now what we're looking to do is just gently warm this lobster meat up in the butter sauce. Let that compound butter really season the lobster chunks. We can even take this back to the grill for just a minute. Onions have got great color on them now. You can pull those off. And then literally just about a minute or so on here to warm this meat up. So now the lobster's warm, the onions are grilled off, but we've got just a couple of more garnishes we're going to do. So let's put that stuff together and then we'll build our lobster rolls. So onions, just gonna get a quick dice here. These still have a little bit of texture to them, which is great. We wanna feel that texture difference, but we've also got that char and that little bit of sweetness. It's gonna be really nice. Next, we're gonna mince up some chives just for that really like fresh, green, oniony flavor on top, aroma, really. Plus visually looks really nice. Fresh little squeeze of lemon on top of the roll, not a bad idea. And then we're just gonna do a really simple little Dijonnaise with the Kozlik's Classique Dijon. We're doing 3 parts of mayo to 1 part of mustard. And we're gonna spread this inside our lobster roll buns. Little tangy, little fatty. So that brings us to the lobster roll bun. These are brioche that I made just following Chef Britt's recipe for brioche, and then I formed them into this shape, kind of like a hot dog bun, just a little bit bigger. So after getting these toasted off, we're gonna split them down the top and just fill them up with that lobster meat. This probably is not anything like a traditional, maybe it's similar, but not a traditional lobster roll, but come on, I can't find any lobster rolls I'm in love with here in Kansas, so we're gonna do it ourselves. So let's start off with some of that Dijonnaise on the inside. We're not gonna go nuts on like our garnishes and the stuff that's here in addition to the lobster. I'm just gonna add a few things that I feel like complement it really well. So we'll open them up, stack them high. You're gonna get your money's worth out of that one right there. Oh yeah, that butter sauce just seeping in. So we may not be doing a lobster salad roll here, but we're still getting some of that mayo that we've put on the bun. All right, so we're just gonna do a little bit of that grilled red onion on top. And some fresh chives. And that squeeze of lemon. And then let's not forget about our presentation meat right there on top. All right, let's dig in. There's a mouthful of lobster. Tasty lobster, man. That butter sauce. It's bright from the lemon. I love that just adding a little bit of steak seasoning to it adds a lot of depth of flavor because of those dried vegetables that are in there. And look, I don't know what's authentic, honestly, really, but I cannot complain about this brioche bun, especially toasted like that. Great texture. Man, just got a little bit of that Dijonnaise on it as well. And that tang is such a great balance to all the other fat that we've added to the lobster roll. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. And don't forget to do the lobster roll. And if you have any questions or comments or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.